All right, good evening and welcome to the Fourth and Long podcast, episode 3. We've got a lot of things to talk about today. But first, Jacob, how you doing, man?
I'm doing well, Justin. How are you?
I'm good, man. I'm good. It's getting. What's the temperature for you guys?
It's like 85 right now.
Dude, it's supposed to drop down below 40 by me this week. It sucks, but like I said, we have a lot of things to talk about, and we'll get right into it with our 5 things in 5 seconds, 50 seconds segment. So, Jacob, I'm going to go. You time me, and I'm going to start right now.
Yep.
So this week, Nick Saban tested negative today after testing positive on Wednesday, and he says he hopes to coach on Saturday. Kansas head coach Les Miles won't travel to West Virginia with his team this week. The SEC fines for breaking protocol have totaled 1 million. I believe you said it was Tennessee and who else? Ole Miss, and
Texas A&M.
and Texas A&M. That's little. I mean, that's just going to happen. Peyton Manning's nephew, not Archie, Arch Manning, debuted last night on ESPN2. And then this is kind of one whole thing. 3 games have been postponed because of the virus this weekend, and the SEC has said that it is going to, move the schedule around, kind of like the NFL is doing, but just kind of different. So, obviously, I think I've said it a couple times, but it's felt like that, like the COVID and the virus hasn't been affecting college teams as much as it has affected the pro teams. And then I finally came to like a realization yesterday. It's like, yeah, because there's 119 teams in NCAA and 32 in the NFL. So, but yeah, so it's been a weird week. I know that, and we'll talk about it, but I mean, the big game, huge game Nick Saban going down this week with the COVID, and then he says he'll get on the sidelines, hopefully, or he thinks he's going to get on the sidelines, or at least into Bryant-Denny Stadium. But I know those people down in Alabama want him there. So just a bunch of that. Jacob, you got anything about anything, really?
I think it's the SEC starting to take lead in minimizing the scrutiny and the misinforming of information. I think it's the right thing to do, and I hope that the ACC will start taking steps. And when the Big 12 and Pac-12 and Big 10 start up, that they will also put into effect some guidelines to hopefully hold teams accountable for this kid's safety and allow them to report accurately and allow for more games to be played and not be moved.
Yeah, I remember on episode 1 we talked about Missouri's new coach Eli Drinkwitz, and he was like, it's just kind of a free-for-all reporting this stuff. And I mean, as much as I would be devastated and stuff, like if football wasn't being played this fall, because I would be devastated and bored out of my mind. But I mean, some of these coaches, I mean, they obviously say they care about the kids, but they want to get on the field because they need a new contract too. And 4 conference championship games are, I think they're on the 18th or the 19th. So I think all the conferences have built in a bye week before that where they would make up games. I think it would be like the 12th or the 13th, but I don't see this going away. I mean, I know the country has experienced, it's gotten worse over the past, I don't know, week, 2 weeks, month, I guess. I don't know. I don't watch the news just because it's the same thing. But so, I mean, do you think there's really, like, how do you solve this? Like, what do you do?
I think what you have to do is keep these guys kind of separated from the rest of campus. And I know that's difficult with these kids being in college and wanting to experience college, go out, make friends, party, do stuff they maybe shouldn't do.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, some of these kids, this is what they have to get out, and they need this to provide for their families. And they take it seriously. But on the other hand, these are just kids basically, and the 4 years in college are supposed to be the 4 best years of your life, and this has kind of made it hard for everybody. But I feel like they have to do more to kind of quarantine these kids during this time. I mean, they still have a whole spring semester to go out and do stuff if it allows.
Yeah, I mean, so this week I talked to the director of communications, athletic communications from Kent. His name's Daniel Griffin. He was a really nice guy. Came on with me. I said a couple questions about policies and everything because I kind of wanted to follow them. They're like 20 minutes from where I live, not even. So I think it's a cool thing if I could follow them. But he was like, dude, there's so much in place. Like I was like, can I follow equipment manager around for a day and like see all they do? I really just wanted free stuff. But he's like, no, I mean, like, you can't come to practices. But he did say that I will probably get an interview with the head coach, which will either it will be pre-recorded and put on here, or I don't know if Coach Lewis wants to stay up till 10 o'clock, but he can come on the podcast. And then their quarterback, Dustin Crum, I was told it's kind of here and there. I might have to make a phone call into Dan's office, and Dan brings in Dustin Crum, and we put on speakerphone. So he hears everything we see. But I mean, I think Harold, who we had on Tuesday, follow him on Twitter at hnash_3. I think he did a pretty good job of kind of explaining it. I mean, he's a young guy, obviously, too. So I feel like a lot of these young athletes, and I'm just saying this because I'm 28, I'm older, but I feel like a lot of these athletes, like, I don't think they get it really. Like, and it kind of makes sense because these guys are top athletes, and like they're supposed to be good when they get the virus. Like they should be able to beat it, but it's still not like safe or anything. So yeah, I don't know if there's really a fix for it, and I don't want to say it, but I mean, what is college basketball going to do?
I completely agree with you. I don't know what college basketball is going to do. That's so many more teams and so much more moving parts, and the games are played pretty much every other day, or they play back to back. So it's like, what are you going to do? Buy a house off campus and have 30 of the guys just live in it and just keep them there the entire season? It's a logistical nightmare for any of these colleges. And, testing daily, it's like you're going to have them wear ankle monitors everywhere they go because you got to track it.
That's not good luck.
It's not, but again, it's the time that we live in, and these kids, are young. They're in their early 20s or late, 19, 18-year-olds, and they want to have fun. And this time it's not possible.
Yeah, like I said, I talked to Dan, and I kind of this week because the MAC isn't going to start up until I think November 3rd and 4th. It's like a Tuesday and a Wednesday, which is great. Love Tuesday, Wednesday MACtion, awesome stuff. But I mean, if I was like an administrator in the MAC, like with seeing what everything's going on in the NFL, I mean, you said the Patriots tested positive again today. I mean, with everything going on, it's just like with college. I mean, I don't know what college basketball is going to do. I don't know how they're going to be able to do it. I had a good idea for college basketball. First of all, my point was, if I was like Kent and it wasn't going to start for another 2 weeks, I might just say let's just play spring ball. Like, with seeing what everything else is going on. And then for college basketball, I mean, I think the only way to do it is you do only conference games, and you play them when you can. They stay in kind of a bubble, like, so the ACC would play all their conference games in Greensboro, like where they hold the ACC championship. But I mean, football is a physical sport, but you have pads on and stuff like that. In basketball, I mean, people are rubbing sweat all over each other. It's just a nightmare waiting to happen. And like I'm almost starting to wonder if this is going to leak into next year, like next football season.
I think it's a possibility, but again, I think the NBA did a great way in showing how it should be done. I mean, they played 179 games total in the bubble, and with 0 positive tests.
Yeah, but and
I understand it's a lot more teams, but the idea of having some sort of bubble atmosphere makes sense. So as you're saying, all the ACC teams play in Greensboro, correct? where the
Greensboro, North
AC
Carolina.
yeah,
Yeah.
all the teams, travel there because none of these colleges have really in-person classes.
No,
So
yeah, they're
you
all
no,
all
exactly. They're
virtual.
all online. So there's no excuse these kids can't log into a Zoom call, do their classes, and then go to practice. If an ACC gets all their teams into one location, I feel like it would work out. It's just finding the arenas, finding the hotel space, finding space for these kids to stay, but also finding places where these teams can practice. It's, again, a logistical nightmare. But
It
I
is,
feel like that's the only way it's going to work
yeah,
because
and
there's too many other variables. There's enough variables in a bubble that you can control and kind of keep an eye on. But just having all these teams across countries and traveling, it's a logistical nightmare, and there's too many unknown variables.
I read an article earlier, maybe earlier this week. It was a short article, but it was basically just like, how is Hawaii, the University of Hawaii or Hawaii University, how are they going to play women's and men's basketball this year? I mean, they just can't.
They
But
can't.
the only idea I really have for college basketball is like, how like in the beginning of the year they always play in like the NIT or like some other like tournament in the beginning of the year to
Yeah.
like in the Bahamas and stuff. Like
Mhm.
every 2 weeks, or like you do one of those, or you play a schedule that's just like tournament style, and you get your games in, and then
That could
once
work too.
once I mean like the tournament, hope to God we have a tournament this year. We didn't even have one last year.
Yeah.
But
I
if we
think
get, go ahead.
I think in order to do a tournament, they need to limit the amount of teams. And I think going from it's 32 teams total, correct? For the
It's 68.
68. Well, then I think what you do is you hold it in Vegas. You put a couple teams in each hotel and you play it there. There's enough facilities to practice. You can go down to a ballroom and because the ballrooms there are huge and you can walk through, talk, have meetings, and then you have enough arenas around there to use it. But again, 68 teams is too much. I think this year we'll see a modified format where they narrow it down to say 32, even maybe 16.
Yeah, I mean it's a tough situation. We're a college football podcast, so I don't want to go about basketball too much, but yeah, it's just, I mean, and like Kent's the MAC is only playing 6 conference games. Like, yeah, that's great. And then also the other thing we talked about on Tuesday, everyone's bowl eligible. So like I said, I mean, a 4-7 South Carolina is going to get a bowl over a 5-1 Toledo team or anything like that. And Dan, the guy I talked to from Kent, kind of explained it like the MAC has certain tie-ins with certain bowls, so
Right.
they would go there. But so I mean, I felt a little bit better about that. But yeah, it's just it's out of control right
It's
now.
it's going to make for those bowl games where it's a 4-7 team versus a 2-3 team
Yeah,
with some of these schedules. It's going to be. I feel like it's going to make for very entertaining football. And there's going to, for some games, but other games, it's just going to be a complete blowout. Like we'll see scores in some of these bowl games that's like these high school games, like 70-10 or, something like that. But again, it makes for the possibility of underdogs and giving teams that would not normally have a chance at a bowl game to have an experience of a bowl game.
yeah, and like I said, they have tie-ins and
Right.
everything like that. But like Florida State, we've talked about it on it, is horrible this year.
Yep.
But I mean, there are very few bowls that would turn away the Florida State and their following. I mean, because the Florida State would have many more people traveling with them than say a Tulsa or an SMU. So I mean, that's pretty much. I mean, we didn't really answer any questions, but that's because we don't know. I mean, it just changes every day, and they keep saying COVID, the virus is going to come back like harder in the
It
winter.
is.
I don't know if that's
I mean, in
necessary.
some areas it is.
Yeah, I mean, so it's just going to be tough to do it, but we're lucky enough that we do have games this week, and we have some good games on the slate, and then we have the
The
game
game.
on that slate, and we will get into that. We have a whole segment on that, but so we'll get into week 7 and our predictions. So if you saw my or anyone saw my preview blog that I put out, Jacob did a lot of work on it. He did all the SEC games. He wrote way too much about it, and it was great. But so basically, what we're gonna do is we're gonna keep track and switch conferences every kind of week, and record our picks. But we will still talk about the games. But so I have the ACC this year and or this week, and you have the SEC. And I'm looking up my notes right now. But yeah, I mean, even Oklahoma State, like I just it's weird. So the first one I have on there is Clemson versus Georgia Tech, and this is a game like that Clemson, like to me, that Clemson has every year. They have an away game on a lazy noon day. I mean, they did it last, or maybe it was 2 years ago or last year against North Carolina. It's a lazy day. They don't come out motivated. Georgia Tech runs a tricky offense. They run like a spread triple option, and you play football. I mean, having to go from like you're practicing, you're defending regular offenses, and then for 1 week you have to shut down and change your whole scheme for that. I mean, it sucks. We like in high school we played 2 triple option teams on both ends of our schedule, and it just for 1 week you lose all basically your whole scheme.
Mhm.
But so
Well,
I go ahead.
Sorry, go ahead. I ran at my last college. At Occidental College. We ran a triple option, and coming from a school that does it and runs it as their offense, it does affect every team differently. But with a team as skilled as Clemson is on defense and how deep they are, what they'll do is they'll stack the box with speed to stop the pitch, to stop the option, and that's how they're going to run their defense. At a team, I would say Georgia Tech has a chance, but they really don't because of how deep Clemson is and how good Clemson's defense is. If they were going up against a team like Florida State, absolutely no chance. Georgia Tech would run the ball all over them. Florida State might get a bounce here and there, but Georgia Tech would just run the triple option, and Florida State wouldn't know how to stop it because they're just not that good.
And this is Georgia Tech's. I think it's their first year running this kind of spread triple option. Obviously, it sucks, but their defense is not very good. They give up over 450 yards a game, and they give up over 250 passing yards a game. So it was when I put in my notes, I said that it'll be close at halftime, and probably about halfway through the third quarter, the starters will have to play the whole game for Clemson. Oh my gosh! But I think Lawrence is going to have a big game. But
Yeah.
Lawrence, we'll get it to when we get into Heisman. Lawrence is he reminds me so much of Tua when Tua didn't when Kyler Murray won the Heisman. And because Tua basically had a bad game in the SEC championship, it just reminds me that it just makes me think that Lawrence has been number one for probably two years, if not 3 in the Heisman, in people's minds. And he just seems like he's going to, I have a feeling that, let's be real, the Heisman is what have you done for me lately kind of award. So I think Justin Fields is going to have, and for his second game to come out and play Penn State, that's huge. But we'll get to that. But so my picks here, I have Clemson 45, Georgia Tech 21. Like I said, I hate Dabo. I'll put it in every time I talk about Clemson. But they're just too good, and like you said, they're too fast that they're not gonna. I mean, Georgia Tech does have some athletes, but they can't keep it. They can't keep it close the whole game.
Yeah, so. I agree with that.
The next one I had, we are going to talk about Pittsburgh at Miami, and this is a major letdown game, I think, for Miami. Because, coming off that tough loss, it wasn't a tough loss, but they built themselves up as a top 10 team and going in there. And I don't, Pittsburgh is no joke.
No, that defense is really solid.
The defense is solid, and Kenny Pickett, their quarterback, has the most has the most passing yards in the NCAA FBS. But Bushell's playing now for SMU, so I'm sure they'll pass him. But so, I think it'll be a tight game, but I just think it's a really big letdown spot for Miami. And hopefully that it's not that because, but we all know Miami's of the past 10 years or so, they lose a big one and they just give up.
Yeah,
So
it's been that year every single year. They either play Florida State and lose, or they face a big team like Clemson and they lose big time, and then it's like, well, we're not as good as we thought we were, and it's just all downhill from there.
yeah, and so my prediction, I have Pitt 34 to Miami's 27. Like I said, it's just a big letdown game. And like I said, I'm just giving my predictions for the ACC because I did the write up in the ACC. He'll give his predictions on the SEC. It's kind of a thing we're gonna do. You will figure it out. Don't worry. But yeah, I just like the ACC seems like it's good every year, or like could be good every year. Like Louisville could be good. Florida State could be good. Miami could be back, and then they just run into Clemson and lose every year. So it's just tough for me to look at that and say that. All right, and then up next in the ACC, Brian Kelly. Everyone remember? No, I'm just kidding. But they have Notre Dame plays hosts Louisville this weekend. I mean, it feels like Notre Dame hasn't played in like 4 weeks.
I mean, it really has. It seems like they start off the year great, and then everyone's like, it's like that. It's like the fourth kid in a family that has a lot of children, and it's like, where you go? And then he just
exactly, yeah.
It just pops up out of nowhere. And he's like, where did you like? Are you okay? Where have you gone?
Yeah, it's just so the ACC is weird, but I haven't watched. I mean, Notre Dame has played 3 games, but I think the last 2 has been postponed, so they should have already played 5. But I think Notre Dame's kind of legit this year. Like we said, we'll get to our playoff picks, and on Tuesday we'll go to our new top 10s, but we'll do our playoff picks here at the end. I mean, I think they're as real as they've been since. Like I don't know, Brady Quinn was there, and the Bush push when USC was good,
and Nelson was there too.
Who?
Quinn Nelson,
their
stud guard.
The guard,
he when he was there, that offensive line
was awesome.
It was. What was the stat for it? I was reading an article on it earlier this week. It was like they let up, I think, only 0.1% of rushes on the quarterback, and they were averaging like 5 yards per carry on any of their running backs.
Yeah, I mean
that's just unheard of.
Who was he was a left guard? Who was it left tackle? Oh, Ronnie Staley, didn't he go to?
Ronnie Staley was his counterpart.
Yeah, I mean, those are 2 all-pro NFL. I mean, I would say Quentin Nelson is probably the best guard in football, and then I would say
Stanley's top 3.
Oh, it's Staley's top 3 for sure. Yep. But like I said, I think this Notre Dame team is kind of for real, and I do think that once the playoffs come around, they're going to get overlooked because everyone remembers. It's kind of like the Oklahoma thing. Like everyone remembers last time they were in big spots. So,
yeah.
And like I said, they haven't played in a while. So is it rust or rest? But Notre Dame has a strong rush defense, and they allow less than 115 yards per game. And this is kind of a question I have for you, kind of not like a trivia or anything, but it really seems like this year that offenses. It reminds me of baseball. Like in the beginning of the year, like pitchers are better than bad. Like why are offenses so much better than defenses right now? Like
I feel like it's because, and I'm biased towards it, but I feel it's based around the offensive line. And the offensive line going into a year has something to prove. For any team, no matter what it is, it's like, okay, you got Kyle Trask or Trevor Lawrence behind you. Well, we're going to throw the ball 30, 40 times per game. You guys got to give him time to do it. You have Travis Etienne behind you. You need to block for him so he can make running room. It's just there's a ton of pressure on the O-line. For defense, it's like you're just trying to stop people. If you contain a quarterback, a mobile quarterback, he's going to be forced to throw, and then you just trust your secondary. So you can at the start of the year you can loaf a little bit. You don't have to go full tilt like some of these players are. I don't think any team or any. I mean, going back to Jadeveon Clowney, no one knew his name until the Michigan play.
I did.
Well, I mean, anyone who didn't
He was
really
the
follow
number one
him.
recruit in the country.
But again, like understand, but at that point in the season, he was kind of like he was on the radar, but he wasn't like up there until that play.
I'll agree with you, but I also went South Carolina, so I'm on the complete other side of it. I saw him, I think 3 times. He was an animal.
Yeah,
But
no, and absolutely an animal. But again, it's like those defensive players don't really like they'll go into it, but they won't really pop their heads up until later in the season. I don't know if you've noticed that with anything, but it's just a standpoint.
yeah, no, I understand. I mean, I get it. Yeah, I mean, but I think Notre Dame, the players around Ian Book, this is the best they've had in a while, and
Oh,
I mean, Ian Book's what is this, like his 12th year? But I mean,
yeah,
as
12th
long
or 13th.
as long as he can like throw the ball accurately and not be turnover prone, I think they have a shot at the playoff. Would I'm hard. I don't think they're really going to test Clemson, but they could play him again in the ACC championship too. But yeah, I mean, I what I've seen from Notre Dame this year, I think they're more legit than they've been in a long time.
I
And
think
go ahead.
I think the only way they really solidify themselves as a top contender is the second to last game of the year for them. That game, November 7th, where Clemson comes into their stadium
Oh,
and
they're hosting Clemson this year.
yep,
Oh, okay, that's big.
that's the defining moment for Notre Dame this year. They'll beat Louisville, they'll beat Pitt, they'll beat Georgia Tech. That game is the one looking forward to watch. Because
Yeah,
if Clemson goes in there and drops a goose egg and Notre Dame just out muscles them and just can control the line of scrimmage, run the ball and throw the ball, that might solidify them as a top 4 this year.
yeah. Yeah. I mean, well, that's another thing I think about Clemson. I think if Clemson loses one game in the regular season or in a conference championship, I think they're going to have a hard time getting in. I
Yeah.
just do. They don't play a tough enough schedule. I think the SEC and the Big Ten would get 2 teams in over the ACC any day of the week and over the Big 12 any
See,
day of the week.
that's the thing. It all comes down to strength of schedule, and even Notre Dame's strength of schedule is not that great. I mean, who is the toughest team they face so far? Pitt coming next week. I mean, is
Yeah,
that really the toughest team they faced? They did. Duke's not really that good. USF is okay. Florida State's terrible this year, and Louisville's a middle of the road team. So again, if they do go up and beat Clemson, it makes a strong push for them to be a top 4 team. But do they get in because of their strength of schedule?
yeah.
That's the thing.
It'll be. I mean, it's just going to be. I mean, going on all of it, it's just going to be weird about what that. I mean, I would love to be a fly on the wall in that college football playoff committee's room when they pick the 4 teams, and because I just have a feeling like it's going to be another crazy end of the year, kind of like it was in. You were like 5, but like in 2007 when in 2007 when Ohio State like was number 1 and then lost, so they didn't get the national championship. So it went to West Virginia and they lost. So then went to Rutgers and they lost. So it ended up being a 1-loss LSU versus a 1-loss Ohio State in the old Bowls national championship. So that was funny. But yeah, I still I like Notre Dame here. Louisville can score points, but probably not many against this tough defense. I got Notre Dame 45, Louisville 24, and now we head to my favorite basketball team, North Carolina Tar Heels. They have a good football team this year. Are they overrated?
Yep.
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
But do they have a solid football team? Yes, and they're going to continue to keep being better because I don't know whatever Mac Brown's doing. Imagine if you're a Texas fan right now and you have Tom Herman who just is just his seat is on fire. And you look over at North Carolina, who's normally not like a power like Texas, and you're like, I kind of wish we had Mac Brown back. But I think this is going to be a weird one for North Carolina, Florida State, because I mean we know Florida State's terrible,
Yeah,
But
that's the only thing.
we know they're terrible. But I mean, Florida State still recruits. They still have dudes that
Yeah.
can play. And this is at Florida State, and I think Norvell's back on the sidelines. But I think it's gonna be a tough game. It's been really weird this year for North Carolina. Like last year, they had this year too. They have Sam Howell, who is a true sophomore now, and last year he played like really well. And like
Yeah.
people were putting him on Heisman ballots to preseason and everything. And this year he's only, I mean, he's only thrown for like 700 yards, and I believe it's 6 touchdowns with 3 interceptions. So they've relied a lot more on the running game. And this is at Florida State too, and like I guess I don't know what's going to happen because I know Dan Malone was talking about we can fill the stands now in
Yeah.
Florida. I think they're probably going to walk that one back, but yeah. So I think this will be a tough one because like I said, if Florida just actually comes out and plays hard, realistically they could play with a lot of teams because they have athletes and they have guys that used to be 5-star prospects, and so they can play with them. But it's a tricky game for North Carolina. I still have North Carolina winning 31-27, but I think it's gonna be low scoring. And like I said, Florida State. I don't know how Norvell's gone in there and they're 1-3. It just makes no sense. They have guys that can play football. It's weird. You got anything to say on that one, or just?
No, again, I think you're right. North Carolina's been overrated all year, but again, Florida State is historically bad this year. I think they'll put up a little bit of a fight, but because North Carolina's defense is solid, but they have their weak points. Again, I think North Carolina pulls this out in a close game.
Yeah. Yeah, moving on. I was checking the private chat. Yeah, so I had the last game in the ACC. I don't really need to go over it. It's Boston College at
Virginia Tech.
Virginia Tech. I don't think Virginia Tech's that good. And I think Boston College actually isn't terrible this year. I mean, that quarterback, Phil Jurkovec, is pretty darn good. He's like a big dude. He reminds me a little bit of Roethlisberger. But, I mean, Boston College has kept it close for a lot of their games. And like I said, I like them to pull out the win here, 27-24.
Yeah,
So,
and I mean, I think the good point about that is they kept, they only lost North Carolina by 4 points, and they beat out a very talented Pittsburgh team last week in overtime. So there is potential there. And again, Boston College is one of the underrated teams in this league this year.
yeah, I mean, they've always Boston. I mean, you know more than I. Wait, you are from Boston, right?
Yes.
Yeah, you know more about it than I do. But I mean, BC's got kind of solid this year. I mean, they get they get guys. They had AJ Dillon. I mean, they obviously had Matt Ryan, but
Don't forget Luke Kuechly. You can't forget the Kuechly.
He didn't have cancer. Who was the guy? James Herzlich or whatever his name is. Mark Herzlich. Yeah. He had cancer. Yeah, that's a good story. I think he's still in the NFL too. Probably just playing 5th string linebacker for somebody. And Luke Kuechly's just retired, so that was a bummer. I was bummed out when Luke Kuechly retired. I really liked him.
He was really good. He was one of those guys that is like, no matter what he played, even if he played for like you hated Carolina, you always loved Luke Kuechly. He's just a great guy.
Yeah, and like he was like when I would play Madden and like I'd get a certain pick, I'd do a fantasy draft. Like he was the only linebacker I would even think about drafting 1st overall. And now I got stupid Bobby Wagner. I don't want him. Get out of here. I want my Luke Kuechly back, who knows how to play pass coverage and picks people off.
Yeah.
So I'll let you take us into the SEC. Obviously, we're gonna keep the SEC games. He's got those this week, and we're both going to talk about how big the other game is. So just lead us into your SEC preview and your picks. And
so first up, we got Auburn versus South Carolina, the school you went to for a year. I think Bo Nix was very overrated coming into this year. They only scored 6 points against Georgia early in the season, which was a big contributing factor to them dropping in the rankings. Everyone thought that their offense would be elite and compete with the best in the country, and then they narrowly escape Arkansas. It's just not a good year for them offensively. Made a lot of mistakes, and their defense is not that good either. But if they do wish to make a push to be a top 10 team at the end of the year, they need to win this game. South Carolina this year has been the shocker in the SEC for defense. They are ranked third behind Georgia. And who's number one right now?
Is it
I really
BYU?
know.
Is
What?
it BYU?
I think it's BYU.
I don't know. I would have no idea. I
But
would
again,
I would
they're
pick
right
Georgia.
behind. They're right behind Georgia for the third best defense, and that is the key for them going into this game. And then also their two guys, Colin Hill and Shi Smith, just kind of came out of nowhere and have just kind of stuck with the top talent in the SEC this year and ACC for connection wise. But overall, I think South Carolina pulls out the dub this week against Auburn, and their defense just is too overwhelming for Bo Nix in that offense. I have the final score being 31-28, and a big contributing factor to that, I don't know if you knew, Bo Nix on the road is 3-4 with only 9 touchdowns and 7 interceptions. That's in his career as a starter.
And granted, I'll give him. He's a freshman starter and now a sophomore starter. The SEC is tough, but you can't commit to be the guy at Auburn when you're not that good. Like,
No, exactly. I mean, you're having to fill shoes like Cam Newton. And that was a big name. You know, everyone's still trying to live up to Cam Newton. I don't think they've had a really good quarterback since Cam at Auburn. Is there a guy you can name that after Cam Newton that was really solid and went high in the draft?
no. But I mean, they. You good?
Yeah, sorry, you cut out there.
Yeah, I remind me next time before I start this and text it. Tell me to switch my Wi-Fi to the good one. Just say the good one.
Okay. But again, I think but that's no excuse. He's 8-1 with 11 touchdowns and no interceptions at home. That's night and day. So he's just a terrible road quarterback. And again, I think South Carolina defense being high ranked is what's going to be the difference maker in that game. Next, we have Kentucky versus number 18 Tennessee. I think
That's a string hanging from the ceiling, so you can pull the light in the. I'm
Okay,
short,
all right.
okay.
well, I didn't know. It's like flying around. It looks like it's a piece
I don't know
of-
why the fan's on. I didn't.
But again, this is Kentucky's coming off a big week. They held Mississippi State to 2 points. I mean, granted, they threw the ball 70 times. Sorry. I'll just let that sit in for the audience listening. That's throwing the ball 70 times and only scoring 2 points. And you can't score 2 points on offense for those who aren't football literate. You can only score 2 points by getting a safety on defense. So Mississippi State's the Kentucky defense, I mean, was just all over them and was able to just control this defense and control this offense. I mean, that was Mississippi State. But Tennessee has been consistent all year round. And other than a struggle last week against Georgia, who, again, is number 2 in the nation for defense, they have run the ball consistently, and that's going to be the key factor going into this game. I have Tennessee winning 31-21. With the Tennessee being able to run the ball against this Wildcat defense that can stop the pass.
Yeah, we're not keeping track of my score, but I had Kentucky. I'm against you. I had Kentucky winning. I mean, Terry Wilson, their quarterback. I mean, he's very mobile, and he can run. They just have a good defense, and I just don't think Tennessee is for real. I think this is the first year in a long time. I'm granted we haven't seen the Big Ten yet, but like the first year in a long time where there's going to be like 5, 6, maybe 7 teams that are just on a different level than the rest of the country. And Tennessee's not there yet, but I mean, I give them credit. I mean, they stayed with Georgia a lot last week, but I mean, I expect a low-scoring game, but
even I have this for you. But even though Kentucky is led the SEC in rushing yards, that's because they ran for so much against Ole Miss. That's the only reason they're leading the country right now. I'm sorry, but it's like
I agree.
Again, I think Tennessee's defense is. I think Tennessee is a well-rounded team. I don't think they're great, but again, I don't think Kentucky is able to force turnovers like they were last week. And that was that. If you look at their games, that's the only way they win games is by forcing turnovers. Their first 2 games they lost, they didn't force a single turnover.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to talk about like because Tennessee ain't gonna talk. It's hard to talk about them when we have like that matchup is not really elite. When we have other
Yeah.
elite matchups in the SEC, I feel like every week we have a big one, and we obviously do this week. But yeah, I don't know. I just Terry Wilson was hurt last year. He's back, but I mean, yeah, we'll see what happens. But
We'll see.
I expect a low scoring game. And
Mhm.
isn't that hurricane hitting the South this week, or was that last week? I don't know. Like I said, I
That was
don't watch
last
it.
week. They
That,
moved it last week because they
okay.
moved the LSU game, remember, before, and then they have to move this week because of the COVID.
God. Yeah, there's no answer in sight.
Next we go to Texas A&M, number 11 Texas A&M versus Mississippi State. I have this potentially being a great game. I mean, the storyline for Mississippi State is you're going to get one type of KJ Costello or Castello.
KJ Costello.
Costello. I mean, you're either going to get the 623 yards versus defending national champs, or you're going to get 4 picks against Kentucky.
Yeah, I mean,
And that's really the struggle. That's been night and day for Mississippi State. I mean, the only game they won was the 623, but again, he's been making bad decisions and kind of put in bad situations by the offensive line, but he just hasn't had a great game since then. And everyone after that game was like, "Wait, here comes Costello for Heisman this year."
I mean,
I have to admit, I was even like saying potentially he was top. He was like number 5 for me. But I again, as I said, and you can go back and listen to it, he has to keep consistent. He needs to keep doing consistently doing that well against these lesser ranked teams, and he just hasn't. It was
yeah,
a fluke, and I think that's all it was. Texas A&M, on the other hand, has a great offense, but they need to be able to find their groove. They can't just rely on Kellen Mond's arm. They have to be able to balance it with the run with Spiller in the backfield, because once they do that, it opens up the passing game. You can't just have Kellen Mond throw for X amount of yards and think you guys are going to win.
yeah. I got one thing about this game, kind of going back to Mississippi State. I mean, he put up 623 on LSU, and they were super happy, and it was an upset. But as we've gone on this year, LSU's secondary is pretty damn bad.
No, exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, so like it looks like they didn't really. I mean, that was a good performance at 623, but it wasn't LSU defense of the past with like the Honey Badger or
No. Yeah.
and even Stingley, who I thought was going to be a Heisman contender this year. He looks lost out there. So yeah, the LSU is. I need to return my LSU pants.
But again, I have my score prediction for this game is Texas A&M 38, Mississippi State 28. I feel like Texas A&M is going to be fueled by that comeback they had against, at the time, number 4 ranked Florida. I mean, they turned it on in the second half and just came back. And I think they're going to be riding that. I just don't think Mississippi State's going to have a bigger fire coming into them, only being held to 2 points. They're not going to be like, dude, we need to perform. We need Costello to just go off. It's just they struggle against decent secondaries. And I think Texas A&M is like, okay, we can legit make a push for a top 5 team this year. We just beat Florida and Kyle Trask and Kyle Pitts, who Kyle Pitts is going to go, we'll do a preview for next week is we'll have be the first 16 picks, and then we'll have – sorry, go ahead.
I think we might do the whole first round, but we'll talk about that. But yeah, see, like a lot of people looked at last week or Florida versus A&M, and they were like, it says more about Florida that they're not as good. I disagree. I think it says more about A&M that they are pretty good. I mean, and Mond finally is right-handed, and not CJ Spiller. That's no Isaiah Spiller. I mean, he's pretty good out of the backfield, but Texas A&M is going to score points, in my opinion, and I guess it's literally flip a coin, and we'll see if Mississippi State wants to score this weekend.
Exactly. It's what Mississippi State KJ Costello are you going to get? You're going to get 623 yards, can actually throw an accurate pass, or are you going to just find, oh, I see a defender. Here's one. Here's an interception. Like he's Oprah with the ball.
I wonder what like for 70 passes in college, like how like in basketball they have like the shot chart. I just can't imagine like all 70 passes all over the field.
I know. Oh my god.
He probably hit a fade like 8 times.
Exactly.
All right. Well, you had the SEC. Go ahead.
Oh, did you want a final note on that?
Yeah. No. Go ahead. Yeah.
No, I didn't.
You're
have
the
a final
SEC.
note.
You're the SEC.
Yeah. Now, ladies and gentlemen, we come into the biggest game of the year. Number 3 Georgia at number 2 Alabama. This is potentially the national championship game. Potentially.
Yeah,
I mean, these top 2 teams, despite this game, are going to probably win out the rest of their schedule and will be in conversation for either a bubble team or in the top 4, hands down. I mean, Georgia, it's the biggest game of the year. Do you want to start off by saying, because I know that I have the SEC, but I'll kind of let you talk since I'll do the majority talking.
Yeah, I was looking at my notes. I mean, these 2 teams could possibly play 3 times this year. One on Saturday tomorrow, one in the SEC championship. So they both have 1 loss. You say then, and then
national championship game.
No, I'm not going national championship game. Final 4.
Playoff game. Yeah,
Final 4. I mean, right now, I would say if that was the case, and Ohio State had been playing, I'd say it would be Clemson 1, Alabama 2, or Georgia 2, Ohio State 3, and the other SEC team 4. So,
right.
But yeah, I mean, you have the SEC. Go take it. I do have a quick stat for you. This is what I was going to say. Why I think it's a big difference. If Saban's not on the sidelines, I think because he's 20-0 against his former assistants. That includes Kirby Smart, and I think it's a little bit like when he's on the sideline, he intimidates like his assistant coaches. Like it's like the water boy. Like it's gonna be like the water boy this week. Saban is up in the press box and not on the field, but I mean Saban has been so dominant against his assistants. He's 20-0, and the combined score of those 20 games is 841 to 308. Like not even close.
Not even close. Damn.
So I'll hand the rest of it over to you. We'll both give our predictions at the end, but yeah, I'll hand it over to you. So I mean, tell me what you think about it.
This Georgia team has really we went into this year week 2. We did not take this team seriously. We were on the fence about it. We're like, oh, Georgia's defense looks all right. We'll see how they'll do. Their offense is kind of lackluster as usual, but this defense really needs to kind of step it up. And they've done it since then. They have held Auburn to 6 points. They held Tennessee to 21 points. But that was after they put in their second, string and third string players. And it just goes to show how much this team is built on defense. And their offense is starting to go and click. I mean, they put up 44 points last week, and against an Alabama defense that is really young but very inexperienced. I mean, it came down to the wire for them last week. They had to be carried by Najee Harris in the second half. But Alabama let up 46 points to an Ole Miss team that had them backpedaling every second of that game. And Ole Miss gave the blueprint for how to beat this Alabama defense. And Georgia can adapt to that and be able to run a quick hurry offense.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean,
but the biggest matchup is going to be played in the trenches on Saturday. Georgia's defensive line versus Alabama's offensive line is the matchup to watch. I don't care about any other position. I don't care about skill. I don't care about secondary. I don't care about the run. Well, the run game is in the trenches, but the game is won in the trenches. This will prove if this Georgia line is legit. They're going up against the biggest and the strongest offensive line in the country. If this Georgia defense can be dominant like they have been, there is no stopping them, and I think they win the national championship this year over Clemson.
Uh, so I'm different. I think the game, we obviously played different positions, but the game is going to be won by the playmakers. And so this is something that I've noticed in watching Alabama. So obviously last year Alabama had Henry Ruggs and Jerry Jeudy both went first round. Devonta Smith and Jalen Waddle, I think, are better than those two. And I think Najee Harris is better than I think his name starts with a Z or something, but Zamir White, and then he's done it so far, but I just don't know how Stetson Bennett is going to go into Bryant Denny Stadium and win. And that's a point I've been saying, because we've said for I think every episode, JT Daniels is cleared to play. So Kirby Smart is just playing Stetson Bennett. And I think Stetson Bennett is finally going to have a game where he's not horrible, but he's going to have a game where if he wasn't playing quarterback and JT Daniels was, I would pick Georgia. But I just don't know how a walk-on is going to be able to walk into that and it's tough, but I think it's going to be.
I have one walk-on name that proves you wrong. Do I need to mention it? He went to Clemson. He made a difference in the national championship game. Walk-on Hunter Renfrow.
He wasn't. Was he a run? Was he?
He was a walk-on. He won the what was his name? He won the walk-on award his senior season because he walked on. His career started as a walk-on.
Yeah, didn't Adam Humphries go to Clemson too?
I'm not sure.
I think he did. I'm almost positive he did.
But again, this game, and I can't stress it enough, and I will keep stressing it. The only way Mac Jones gets time to throw the ball if his offensive line gives him time for it. The only way Najee Harris goes off for 5 touchdowns, the offensive line controls the line of scrimmage.
I agree with you on the quarterback part. Najee Harris is big enough. He reminds me. You have poisoned my mind on Najee Harris.
I'm not saying that. I'm Najee Harris, but again, it starts with the offensive line. I mean, Najee Harris's work. I'm going to compare him to Derrick Henry. In all honesty,
that's who I was going to say. Yeah, it's exactly who I was going to say.
Exactly like him, except he has more speed. He's not built. He hasn't put on enough muscle yet, but he will. But right now, he has more speed. But again, it starts on the offensive line. If they can control and contain that Georgia front that's pinning back its ears and getting after people, then it's Alabama's game to lose.
Yeah.
Mac Jones has to keep being accurate. Najee Harris has to keep running the ball like he has. But again, all starts with that offensive line. That's going to be the thing to watch that game. And I know everyone's like, oh, but I just like watching college football. If you just watch the offensive line and you go back to anybody who actually knows football and knows college football, that they will say going back to that game, either that Georgia front dominated and just was overwhelming Alabama's offensive line, or Alabama's offensive line just absolutely demolished Georgia's front seven.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, go ahead.
Oh, go ahead. I was gonna say, your note on here says, if Saban can't coach, how much of a factor does that make? I don't think it makes a factor at all. Thing with Nick Saban is he's just like Bill Belichick. It doesn't matter who you have. If you have an undrafted free agent out of South Alabama, you throw him in that corner in the biggest game of the year in the biggest moment of all time. You do. It doesn't matter what coaching staff you have. That coaching staff has been taught by Nick Saban. They have his methods. It's like Sherlock Holmes to Watson. You know my methods. Now take them and use them. That's exactly it. There's no Nick Saban not being there. The only point that you brought up that he is an intimidator. He will intimidate the crap out of that coaching staff across the way if he's there on the sideline.
I agree. So we'll obviously be texting back and forth tomorrow about it, I'm sure. But I think you said your final score prediction was
Georgia upset 35-31.
All right. Well, I have Alabama 31-20.
We'll
So
see. It's going to be a great game nonetheless. It's
yeah,
going to
really.
be it has one or two ways of going. It can be high scoring, like a shootout, like we saw against Oklahoma and Texas last year, or it's going to be nasty. It's going to be gritty, and that dogfight is going to be great to watch. No matter what you do, if you love football, this is the game for you.
Nobody cares about you offensive linemen. All right. No. One thing I do want to say though is I honestly, with everything that's happened this week, the NFL moving things around, I just want tomorrow night to be able to watch a good football game.
Exactly. It's
Yeah.
going to be that. There's enough high talent on either side and professionals that most of these guys you're going to see play tomorrow are going to be playing Sundays in either this upcoming year, then the year after that, or the year after that.
Yeah. So we both gave our predictions. We'll move on. We're running a little long, but I think that's okay, honestly, man, because we've been talking the entire time, so I'm not
Yeah.
too worried about it. Did I have what did I have next? I think I had Heisman.
Yep. A Heisman.
Heismanology. I'll give out mine first.
Mhm.
What do I have? I have Lawrence at 1, and then Fields at 2, Harris at 3, Shane Bichelle out of SMU at 4, and Mac Jones at 5. Bichelle won't. He won't get to. He won't win it ever. They'll never give it to a small school guy like that. But he deserves to go to New York. He's having a good year. So that's. I mean, I think a lot of Texas fans would agree that they would rather have Shane Buechele right now than Ellinger, who just says "hook 'em horns." But yeah, I have that. And like I said, I think Fields has a major advantage starting later because
Oh
it
yeah,
really
because
is.
he has to live it. He just has to meet a certain benchmark. He has to
Yeah.
succumb that. It's not at the same time where it's like, okay, you're playing an earlier game, you do this, and then Trevor Lawrence is like, oh, I saw Justin Fields do this, now I can go and do this.
Yeah. So and he gets like I don't. I'm gonna be really excited for the Penn State game, Ohio State game. I'm gonna try and get over there. I doubt it though. It's Halloween, so I'm not. But I'll be watching it. We could do like a live watch for that or something.
Mm-hmm.
Because now that we're locked in with the people, and then I think I'll talk to you about it later. But yeah, but. So I think, and then, like I said, Heisman has been a "What have you done for me lately" award,
Yeah.
and with Fields coming in, they host Nebraska, who's not terrible, and they go
Mm-hmm.
right to Penn State in probably the second biggest game of the year um, at Penn State. And if Justin Fields goes off, then I think he surpasses Lawrence. I think Lawrence, like I said earlier, he's like people just forget about him because he's always been there. But like I said, yeah, I have Lawrence, Fields, Najee Harris, and Mac Jones. If one or both of those guys have a big game on Saturday night, then they'll skyrocket up the boards.
Mm-hmm. Can you repeat your top five? You kind of were cutting in and out there for me again.
Oh God, you gotta tell me to switch my Wi-Fi. Yeah, it's Lawrence 1, Fields 2, Najee Harris 3, Bichelle 4, and Mac Jones 5. But like I said, if Mac Jones or Najee Harris have a good game, they'll skyrocket.
All right, Travis Lawrence, number 1 for me.
Travis, is he Trevor's brother?
Trevor Lawrence, sorry. Trevor Lawrence at number 1. Number 2, I have a shocker here, and it's only because of the numbers he's been put up. I have Mac Jones at number 2. I just think, I mean, what he's performed, he's the second most accurate quarterback in college football right now, and he has the most yards per game and highest passer rating for a quarterback right now. At number 3, I have the man, the myth, the legend, Mr. Travis Etienne. I mean, let's just wait before you say anything. I know it's controversial. This man has sat out the fourth quarter twice and is still number 3 in the nation for scrimmage yards per game at 159.3. His production has been capped because of how much they're outscoring teams.
Yeah,
that's just unbelievable. And he's for being that productive in that short amount of time span for a game. I mean, that's just insane.
Yeah, I mean, they've started using him in the pass game a lot more because every time I look at his numbers, they're good, but like I guess I don't look at all scrimmage yards. I kind of look at rushing yards, and then.
Right.
But like I mean, yeah, they started using him in the pass game a lot. So
Mhm.
at least you said his name right, though. That's good. Keep working
At
on
number
that.
4, I have the man, the myth, the legend, Najee Harris. I mean, this man, if again, as you said, if he goes off this week, rushes for even close to 5 touchdowns or even catches a couple, he'll jump up, and I think he'll compete with Trevor Lawrence for a top 2 spot this year.
So you think Alabama's gonna win then?
No, I mean, I still think Georgia's. Again, I said 2 or 3, and my score prediction has that in there. I have them only scoring 31 points. That's 3 touchdowns.
No, you have them 35.
No, I have Georgia at 35. I have Alabama at 31.
Yeah, I got you. Yeah, that's right. I have it written down.
At number 5, though, I have Zach Wilson out of BYU. That man is, and they won't. He's not a real contender. I mean, they just don't have the strength.
Yeah, same as Michelle.
Yeah, he doesn't. They don't have strength of schedule, but you can't. Through the first 4 games, they're undefeated. They're averaging 310 passing yards per game, and per attempt, he's at 12 yards per attempt, which is crazy. He's thrown 14 touchdowns with 1 interception. One interception this year. I mean, that's just unbelievable for a team like BYU, in my opinion.
Yeah, I got it. And they already started. They're about an hour into their game. But I will say, I'm trying, my internet's not very good right now, but I'm trying to look up their schedule. I do know they've played all very weak teams, and even in ESPN wrote an article about ESPN, or we'll just call it He Who Will Not Be Named from now on, wrote an article that says Zach Wilson and BYU keep winning. Is anybody watching? And no one's watching. So, but yeah, he's
I mean,
good.
again, I feel like I kept it with players that have currently thing. I think Justin Fields will finish in the top 3 or even top 2 this year. But again, I think the race is going to come down to be honest, I don't like putting Mac Jones in number 2, but just his production this year in that offense is just like you can't leave him out of it. You just have to include him. But I think this race is going to come down to 3 people. It's going to be Trevor Lawrence, Justin Fields, and Najee Harris. Those are going to be my final 3 going into the national championship game, or even after that. I forget when they announced the award. But we are going to get – sorry, go ahead.
What if Justin Fields come out and tears his ACL? You can't say these things. That's going to be your top 3 already at the end of the year.
I still feel like that's going to be top 3. I'm sticking with that.
I hope so. I hope they invite 5 this year. They did 4 last year just so they could include Chase Young, basically. But yeah. I mean, yeah. I have my best bets. Did you get any, or you just want me to go over mine?
I didn't do any best bets this. Oh well, I mean, my best bet is taking the under in the Georgia Alabama game. The over was that, I believe. What was the over for that? Wasn't it like 70? I think it was.
I didn't look at that. But yeah, I'll take it. Here's my best bets of the day. Tomorrow, put them in tonight, lock them in. A lot of these, lock them in tomorrow morning, even because I mean, lines are going to change as the day goes on. But right now, I have Auburn at South Carolina under 52, Pittsburgh at Miami over 48. Georgia Tech plus 27 at Clemson. South Carolina outright. Notre Dame minus 17. Kentucky versus Tennessee under 45.5. And Boston College versus Virginia Tech under 63. So I'm pretty confident in all those. I'm actually really confident in that South Carolina one. And I'm also really confident in Georgia Tech. I think they'll keep it within 28 points, 4 touchdowns. So, because I mean, if anything, they'll have their starters in when Clemson has their 4 stringers in, but those 4 stringers are still probably better than Georgia Tech's players. So, I don't think I had anything else before we get to, our playoffs right now. Like I said, you can go first this time. I'll go second.
Yeah. I mean, Clemson, number 1. After this week, I have Georgia at number 2. I have Bama at number 3, even with the loss. And then I have Notre Dame at my number 4 spot.
Okay, that's good. I think it's pretty close to what I have. Right now I have Clemson at 1, Alabama at 2 because I think they'll win. Oklahoma State at 3, and
Really?
Georgia
I
at
mean, with
4.
the teams that played now, I mean, I can understand that.
I mean, whoever loses that SEC championship game, and they're both 1-1 or only one loss teams, the team that lost the SEC championship is going to be the one trying to get in because it's what have you done for me lately. So they'll get the
Right.
4 seed. But I mean, Georgia Clemson could be an incredible game. And
No, yeah, absolutely.
obviously Alabama. I mean, Alabama, Oklahoma State. But I mean, I decided not to put Ohio State or Big Ten people in because if the season ended right now, they wouldn't have it in. So, and I thought Oklahoma State was UNC has to play through the tough ACC, Notre Dame, Clemson, those guys, and so I mean,
So you don't have Notre Dame in your top 4 though?
no,
Wow,
I have,
really? After
I have
all that
Oklahoma.
high praise,
I mean, it's not high praise, really. I just think
you were talking them up earlier on in the show. You were
I know,
saying they're big, their defense is solid. That's the best team they've had in a couple years.
I agree, and it's actually honestly just because I'm happy it's not going to be freaking Oklahoma again this year.
I knew you were going to bring it up. I knew it was going to come up. I knew Oklahoma. Thank God it's not Oklahoma this year.
It's
or
just
Florida State for that matter.
Yeah, I mean, whatever, but yeah. So that's my playoffs. I mean, obviously, it's going to change. I would be shocked if I'll tell you this right now. I would be shocked right now if any other conference outside the Big Ten or the SEC gets more than one team in. I think it's either coming from the Big Ten, Ohio State, Penn State. Actually, it can't come from the Big Ten. Well, it can, but because Ohio State and Penn State are both in the East Division,
Right.
and so they won't. They'll play Wisconsin in the championship again. But yeah, yeah, and then I have 2 locks of the weekend where I guarantee the win. If I get it wrong, roast me on Twitter or whatever you do. I don't really care, but I'm pretty confident. I'm pretty confident in these ones. Right now, I put it in. I actually locked mine in tonight before I got on. Bama -5 and Texas A&M -5. I think if Bama wins that game, it's gonna be more than a touchdown. So yeah, and then I think A&M they're coming off a win where they looked good, they felt good.
Yeah, I had A&M as a lock as well.
Yeah.
I didn't pick a second one because I just think it's going to be.
Yeah,
I just picked one.
Yeah,
I just feel again all these games are like Pittsburgh, Miami's going to be close. Notre Dame's going to blow Louisville. I just don't know if they'll cover. I don't know if they'll throw in their second strings late enough
that line keeps going down. It was at 17.5 to start the day, and I got it at 17, and now it's 16.5, and I'm angry.
But again, and then North Carolina against FSU. I mean, Florida State, you just don't know what you're going to get out of them. They could be that little brother that's just always nagging you to play video games and like, I want to play. Or they're going to be sitting in a corner just with themselves on their phone at a family event being like, I'm just going to play Call of Duty Mobile, Madden Mobile on my phone and not talk to anybody. You just don't know what you're going to get out of that team.
No, you have no idea. And especially with the new coach too.
Yeah, I mean, it's just in all the other games. But again, I feel like Texas A&M will definitely be Mississippi State.
Yeah, I like that too. I think they're coming big. They're going to keep rolling, and I wouldn't say they're a contender just yet, but they could get there. So
they could.
All right, let's go
into
trivia. Trivia?
Yeah, that's our last topic of the night.
Yep, I moved it there. I got trivia going. You ask one, I'll ask one, and then we can give our answers in the private chat. You only get one guess. I'll nod yes or nod no, or say yes or no, and then. But basically, if you answer, the answer to it, tweet at us at the number 4th and long pod, or at Pakuto Jacob, or at Brownlow JCLE, and we'll eventually come up with the prize and everything because I love college football trivia. I'm going to crush you this week, but yeah, you ask one, then I'll ask one, and then we'll go like that. So,
right. So my first one is the 1980 Holiday Bowl between Southern Methodist University and Brigham Young University has been dubbed the Miracle Bowl, based on the tremendous come-from-behind victory capped by Jim McMahon's Hail Mary touchdown pass. Who was on the receiving end of this legendary play?
Jim McMahon's pass. Jim
Yes,
McMahon.
Jim McMahon.
You may have gotten one
You're
of the
cutting out, Justin. So
you may have gotten your trivia from one of the same sites I use for one of mine. I saw this earlier. Because later in the article they talk about Flutie's miracle Hail Mary, and
yep.
is his first name this?
First name. Ooh, no, it is not.
Okay, all right, okay. So obviously we'll talk about it at the end and we'll go over it, but that's a good one. That's a good one because that's a good one. That's a good one. You cheater. All right.
What's yours?
I got 4 of them for you.
Oh, you have well, wait. Do you want me to say all of mine? I thought we were going back and forth.
Yeah, we're going back and forth. Yeah, we're going back and forth right now. But yeah, I have 4 of them. Okay. What 2 receivers won back-to-back Biletnikoff awards?
Ooh.
I'll give you a hint. They're from the same conference.
Same conference. Oh, are they same team? No. Okay. I'm typing in the chat right now who I think it is. Said they were same conference, right?
Yeah.
Was it?
I'd be impressed if you got this.
Oh, my caps lock is on.
No.
Damn it.
Who's Washington and Westbrook?
James Washington and Dede Westbrook.
James Washington went to Oklahoma State, right?
Oh, different division. Oh, I'm an idiot.
No. He went to Oklahoma State, right?
Yeah.
One of the answers is from that school.
One of the answers.
Mm-hmm.
So it's two different. So it's 2 different players, correct?
Yeah, they won back to back. If you get one, but we got to move on. We're running along, but we'll talk about it afterwards. All right, so your next one for me, sir.
Wait, I typed his name in. I'm thinking it was that one. That's the only other one I can think of right now.
That's one of them.
Okay.
So I'll give you a half a point.
What?
I'll give you a half a point for that one.
Okay. Okay. My next question is: in 2004, which player finished second place in Heisman voting, the highest finish ever for a freshman?
Adrian Peterson.
This one should be easy for. Yeah. I thought you weren't gonna say it out loud. I thought we were texting in the chat.
That's an easy one, bro. That's an easy one.
I had to
get off of me.
What's yours one?
Hold on one second. I'm trying to keep our scores.
My next one.
Okay. This actually is kind of easy, but it's not. Who was the last player from the Big Ten to win the Heisman?
What? I couldn't hear you. You cut out.
Who was the last player in the Big Ten to win the Heisman?
You cut out there. You said the last. Who to win the Heisman?
The last player from the Big Ten to win the Heisman.
From Big Ten.
Yeah.
Ooh.
You got 10 seconds.
I don't know.
All right, I'll talk to you afterwards about that one. All right, you're up.
My next question is.
I'm very disappointed in you, by the way. That was an easy one.
I know. I'm sorry. All right.
Yeah.
This one is one that you probably had. So we talked about the Hail Mary pass, but there's also another Hail Mary pass you brought up was the Doug Flutie. Boston College was using to the University of Miami late in the game when Flutie lofted his 48-yard pass to his receiver. Everyone talks about Flutie, but no one mentions the guy who caught the ball.
Is his first name the one I wrote down?
Well, it could. No, it is not.
Okay. All right. Then I have no idea. But you definitely got your trivia from the same place I did.
I did, yeah.
I mean, actually, 3 of mine I thought of on my own and kind of looked them up. But the one, this next one is from that site. So
Okay. So
I'm
I
not
probably
even.
know it. I went through a lot of these.
I'm not going to count this one, or I'll do a different. I'll do my other one first. I have another one that I won't count but you might know actually, but I'll just do one I
Okay.
have. All right. Who is the highest paid assistant coach in college football?
Oh, I don't know that. I don't know. I don't know. You got it. You're talking to someone who like casually watches college football and has just recently gotten into college football. I'm not like an encyclopedia of college football.
It's all right. It's all right. I'll talk to you about it afterwards because that one was a tough one too because obviously last year, it was Dave Aranda and Joe, the 2 coordinators for LSU. They were. I'll talk to you afterwards. Do you have another one?
Yes, I do.
Okay.
This one you probably get. University of Houston had a star Heisman Trophy winner. What was his name?
Andre Ward.
Ward. Are you sure it's Ward? What's his last name?
Heisman Trophy winner?
Yeah, it wasn't Ward. You got the first name right,
It's Andre.
and some of the letters are there. But I mean, I'll give you credit for it because,
It's Andre Ware.
yeah, there
Yeah,
you go.
Andre Ware. Okay, cool. I got 2. So you got a half a point there, and I got.
Wait, I think I got the full point for the second one because you said it was from same conference and I narrowed it down. So
Okay.
I had like once you said the same school, there was only one other person that I knew.
All right. So who do you have other than that one?
Was it Golden Tate?
No, I'll talk to you afterwards.
No.
No. So you
You're
get.
cutting.
You get
So
1
what's the other
point.
one?
You get 1 point. I'll give you 1 point for getting that right, and I have 2 for getting yours right.
Yeah.
You know what? We'll talk after this. I'll ask you this question afterwards. But that's gonna do it for us. The Fourth and Long podcast, episode 3. Looking forward to week 7. It's been an unfortunate week in college football, and obviously our thoughts and prayers all go out to the people affected by it and their friends and families. Never want to see this happen. But yeah, but we do get to look forward to. I mean, it's not a great slate, but I mean, I can guarantee you that I'll sit down at noon and probably will move at 4 to walk the dog, and then be back by 5 and start locking in on Alabama, Georgia. I'll talk to you afterwards. But yeah, anything closing remarks?
No, I just want to say everyone, be safe, stay 6 feet apart, and go Bulldogs.
Shut up.